Every person has a story, and every experience has a lesson. This is Limitless Minds, where we talk to our Cal alumni, be it scientists, artists, educators, professionals, and much more, and all to uncover the pivotal moment that shaped their lives. I'm Tanish Shenoy, your host, and together we'll be exploring their triumphs, challenges, and defining experiences. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Limitless Minds, the podcast where we sit down with Cal alumni and uncover the real, the raw, and often life-changing stories behind those titles. I'm your host, Tanish Shenoy, a sophomore at Cal, Go Bears, teen entrepreneur, and someone who's learning that success, it isn't just about what you build, it's about what you bounce back from. And today's guest, well, he redefines what it means to rise on every level. A few days ago, I finished reading his newly launched book, which is so inspiring and motivational. It's called Paralyzed to Powerful. And his story, I have to say, hits like a wave. Not to drown you, but wake you up to your own strength. So let's welcome Robert Paylor, class of 2020, who was paralyzed from the neck down during the national championship rugby game. The doctors told him he'd never walk again. And yet, he did. He now walks 500 yards a day. He's an author, a keynote speaker, and a mindset coach. And most recently, he was featured on many news outlets, including ABC7, inspiring millions as he shared his story. His story is just like how fire forges steel. And his setback, it didn't just test him, it refined him into something unshakable. Robert, welcome to Limitless Minds. I am truly honored to have you here.
Tanish, I'm so excited to be here today. That is an amazing introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Welcome in. So Robert, since you recently launched your amazing book, I want to start off there. The book, Paralyzed to Powerful.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say it hit me hard in the best way possible. You talk about how your identity as an athlete was suddenly stripped away in just a single moment. But you also talked about how you reclaimed purpose, not in spite of your injury, but because of it. So what inspired you to write this book now, and what exactly did it teach you about your own story in the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. The inspiration for writing this book was really about making meaning in this incredible challenge. I mean, to imagine just the mental difficulties that went into really having my passion and my purpose in life in rugby, where here I am competing for the best rugby team in the nation, starting as a sophomore, which isn't an easy or common thing to do, and thinking like beyond that, I have these great dreams and goals for my life. I want to be an All-American. Maybe I'll represent the United States. Maybe I could play internationally. Now, those are big goals. Who knows what would have happened? But those were all things in my mind that I was working to achieve. And then in one day, because of something I can't control, it's gone. And I break my neck. And not only am I just not able to play rugby anymore, I'm not able to walk. I'm not able to feed myself at one point, breathe at one point. Almost all my physical capacities were taken from me, being paralyzed from the neck down. I needed to find something that could replace this massive hole that had been left in my life, losing that purpose. And I found it in sharing this story, in helping people overcome the challenges that they face in their lives, in work, in their personal life, in their families, in their relationships. Because we all have something that paralyzes us. I have this journey of battling a physical paralysis, but I and all of us deal with mental paralysis, emotional paralysis, those things that people can't see that lie within that are still ever so present, ever so serious. And it's through sharing these tools that have helped me with that physical paralysis that I've really regained that purpose. And it started off, mostly just little bite-sized pieces, social media videos, Facebook posts, and then like doing a speech or podcast, stuff like that. But we could talk for like an hour straight about this journey, and I'm still just scratching the surface. There's so much in there, and that long written format of the book really helps me to dive deeper into it. And that was one of the big motivations of doing that is I want to really open up my heart here and give it to someone else. And the book was just such a great way to do that.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story. And for sure, I notice you're connecting resilience and purpose in a way that really hit home to me.
Mm.
And about the dreams and stuff, you're saying that you wanted to play for the US, compete internationally. Those are some really big dreams. And I know many college students who go into sports for their college have those sort of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings me to the next question. Like, let's rewind back to that day, May 6th, 2017. You're on the field, you're hyped, energy's very high. You're playing in the national championship game. So what was the first thing that went through your mind when you realized you couldn't move anymore?
Hard to think of the first thing. I think the first thing was just fear. It's just a feeling. It's like I said earlier, it's hard to explain what goes through your head. And I'm just kind of thinking my life as I know it is over. I mean, I'm lying there on the field, totally conscious, totally clear in my mind, but completely numb and motionless from about my collarbone down. And I had seen stories like this on TV before, or just scrolling through my phone where someone can't move anything and they can't feel anything. And you get the updates years later. A lot of times there's not a lot of physical progression. The nature of the injury is catastrophic and chronic. And I start kind of thinking that might be me. I'm thinking like, am I ever going to be able to play rugby again, go to school, graduate, have a career? Am I going to meet a girl, get married and start a family? I started thinking like, am I even going to be able to feed myself ever again? I saw this potential reality where I might just, be in a chair, motionless, kind of like someone would prop me to look out of a window. So I have something to do. And my mom will just spoon feed me. And then one day she's going to die. And then so I'm just going to have some caretaker who helps me. And I'll simply just survive, just stay alive for the rest of my life, but not really have anything to live for. And it terrified me. And it was all those thoughts going on in my head in just seconds, like the rest of my life is playing out in my mind. But in that, had to continue to have some cautious optimism that I can get through this. But it was hard. I mean, that first day, I didn't get any good news that day. And it was really just the beginning of the fight for my life.
I see, yeah, that's a lot, and sounds really tough. Yeah, you must have had feeling like, oh, I can't do it much. But then when did the mental recovery really begin? And I'm here talking about like when did your mindset change?
Yeah, so it was little bits and pieces, but it was all that day that things changed. And so the medical staff runs out onto the field to protect me because the referee did not stop play after my injury. So they're continuing to compete around me while I'm lying there paralyzed, screaming on the field. It was atrocious. If somebody would have landed on me in that moment, I might have died. And my injury certainly would have been more severe. So luckily the medical staff was able to treat me, but I start asking questions. They start doing their tests and they're like, Robert, can you feel this? Can you move this? And it's just no, I can't do anything. And then I get into the ambulance. The guy's kind of running me down. We're going to take you to the hospital. They're going to do some examinations, MRI, CT scan, X-ray, stuff like that. See what's going on here. Do you have any questions? And the only question I had was, am I going to walk ever again? And he said, I don't know. And now that might sound pretty bad, but for me, it was actually a little bit of a sigh of relief because he didn't say no. He just said, I don't know. So it gave me like some hope that I could hold on to. And with that hope, I could really start applying my athlete's mindset. And being an athlete, I think prepared me better than anything else for being able to take on this injury because I was used to getting up early. When I went in the gym, if I wasn't sore the next day, I was mad. I was like, I wasted my time because I'm not sore. Like I was really trying to push myself to that next level as an athlete. And I was able to kind of apply that to this next endeavor in life. So you look at the Cal Rugby team on that day, we won our 31st national championships. And since then, the programs had 34 total national championships, with the national tournament only even being around for about 50 years. When you have that kind of level of success, you have a belief in yourself that you are going to be an outlier in these statistical odds because you're putting forth an effort and a strategy that's able to approach that outlier of those statistical odds. For me, when I had been told by my doctor that I'm never going to walk again, I'm never going to move my hands, I'll be lucky if I can feed myself again one day, I was thinking, you don't know me and you don't know how hard I'm willing to work at this. So I was able to kind of put that athlete's mindset in there. But then what really helped me was a phone call I had with my spiritual director before my surgery. After my doctor had told me that I am likely not going to move anything ever again, he recommended a spinal fusion surgery to me, which is potentially life-threatening. It was my best chance at stability, of course, but they performed the surgery for the front of the neck. So there's a lot of important real estate right here. My body was already freaking out. I had a 103-degree fever. I peaked up to 105 at one point. There was inherent risk in this, and he told me I had 1 hour to make a decision and I could make some phone calls. So the first phone call I made was to this spiritual director, and I'm asking for prayers, asking for advice. And he gives me this piece of advice that just gave me so much hope. And it made that turn in my mental approach to this. And he said, throughout this journey, there's going to be a lot of things that you can't control, but the one thing you'll always have control over is your mindset. So your positivity, your ambition, your willingness to wake up every day and fight this is up to you. And this injury can't take that away from you. So that moment, I didn't have a lot. I didn't have the odds on my side. I didn't have a doctor saying that everything was going to be okay. And I didn't have these signs of life showing up. But I had this decision to keep moving forward. And we always, at all times in our lives, at whatever we're going through, have that choice and freedom to keep moving forward and to remain optimistic regardless of all this uncertainty that's around us. So I had that one thing I could control, right? My mindset. And because I had that one thing, I had something to focus on. I had hope and an approach that I could take throughout this journey, which I certainly needed.
Wow, that's a really touching part of your story. And I love how you emphasize the athlete mindset about no matter what it is, you're going to give your hardest. And how you use that analogy being like, if I wasn't sore the next day, I'd be mad.
Yeah.
Good one about that. And I can hardly imagine, as much as the physical fight was intense, I know the real challenge that most people most likely would not see as well was the mental one. Your prognosis, it wasn't just difficult, it sounds devastating. Like, you couldn't move, you couldn't walk, you barely had enough independence. And in a world where everything you worked for was stripped away, how did you start, like, building a new story for yourself and get back up?
Day by day, a very much day by day approach. So just to kind of explain the series of events. So after I woke up from the surgery, that's where the real fight began. I couldn't breathe and I had pneumonia. So as fluid or phlegm would get stuck in my windpipe, I couldn't cough it out. My diaphragm was mostly paralyzed. So we'd have my mom, my nurses, my respiratory therapist just slamming down on my chest, trying to move this out of my lungs. It was almost like chest compressions. I mean, it was a lot of force, but right below my sternum, trying to generate that force to help me clear my lungs. But I felt so helpless. There's times when, like, sometimes people wouldn't be in the room and I'd have this coughing fit and I'm trying to just get the words help out so someone can help me cough. And, I'm looking at my like oxygen stats and they're all dropping. And there was times when I thought like I might die. And my doctors told me that. A few of my nurses said like, this is really bad, Robert, you're in trouble.
Wow.
And beyond that, I couldn't swallow anything. So I couldn't eat or drink. And I lost 60 pounds in a month. And it was through that I kept going back to that advice of my spiritual director. Control your mindset. Keep moving forward. If you want to live, you need to go through these breathing treatments. It kind of took away the decision from things. If you want to eat, you have to go through 3 days of someone trying to shove this tube up your nose and into your stomach so you can get some nourishment. It was really kind of one of those do or die type of situations, but that control your mindset piece made it like, do I want to do this? Heck no. But do I have to do this if I want to achieve this goal or this outcome? Yes. And I think that's a good approach for us to have. If you have a really clear vision on what you're looking to achieve, then your options just start dwindling away and it becomes very clear. This is the path I have to go. And it doesn't matter if I want to do this, I am able to do this. So I'm going to, because I want this outcome. So that really helped me a lot in there. But beyond that, it was support. is having just a really good support system. And that's my mom sleeping on a chair by my bedside for 2 months, my entire family being there for me, my rugby teammates being there in the hospital nearly every day when I was in Santa Clara, and then calling me all the time when I was over in Denver, helping me when I returned back to Cal, just my rugby coaches, and then this just general community of people giving me their love, giving me their support, telling me that they believed in me when others didn't. I would not have been able to do any of this if it weren't for their encouragement and their support, because I knew that there's people who are rooting on me. And in some ways, they're counting on me to keep pushing forward and to provide that inspiration. I felt both that really lifting up of encouragement and also a responsibility from them and how they're all rooting me on. I didn't want to let them down. So I think that team aspect was and is really important for me and for all of us.
Wow, that seems like a lot, and definitely something that would not be easy for anyone to go through. So, what was a moment that triggered you where you told yourself, I am no longer accepting this fate? I want to write my own version.
Yeah, it was immediately. It was right when the doctor told me you'll be lucky if you can feed yourself. I was just thinking, I can't accept that. That's not a vision. That's not motivating. And I think for all of us, we can't settle for something that's unacceptable in our lives. You have to at least go for it. You have to make a vision. And there's a quote that I included in my book. It's by Robert Fritz. And it says, it's not what the vision is, it's what the vision does. So what that essentially means is you don't have to have like this extremely carefully crafted plan when you make a vision. It doesn't matter what it actually is. It's a matter of what it enables you to do, what it motivates you to do. It's what the vision does. So that's having a goal like I had, where my goal on day one was to be able to be wheelchair independent one day, to stand up from my wheelchair and never sit back down. Now, you got to imagine when you become a quadriplegic, you want nothing more than to be able to walk and have your mobility back. That appetite to achieve that goal is insatiable. It's so powerful and motivating. When we make a vision, we need to make it be something like that you want to achieve success in this facet of your life as much as a quadriplegic wants to walk. I think when we have that, it helps us to keep moving forward in those really difficult situations. And it really fills that criteria of it's about what the vision does. We need to spend time thinking about that. And that's that vision that I set for me on day one that really just has propelled me through the last 8 years of my recovery.
Wow. So you're saying that you straight up the moment you went into hospital, you were already, for the most part, high in the mindset. You were having everything. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to live it like this. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get back up, no matter what it is. And with the help of like a spiritual leader and a few of your friends and family, you were able to do it. Wow, that takes a lot of courage to do so.
It was a lot. It was. And I even remember like there was a professor in the Haas School of Business named Sally Fulp who came over to visit me when I was really going through it. I had pneumonia. I couldn't, breathe or swallow. It was really bad. And he comes in and he recounts this conversation. I included in the book as well, where I told him, I was like, I'm going to get into the Haas School of Business and I'm going to take your class. And he goes back home to his wife that night and he's like, I don't even know if he's going to survive this. And here he is like telling me that he's not only going to beat this, like he's going to go back to Cal into the Haas School of Business and take my class and everything. Fast forward a year or two later, there I am sitting in that class and I made it. It was having that really courageous, bold vision from the get-go that helped to motivate all those achievements.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely that mindset, that motivation, that everything you're going to do no matter what. Wow, that definitely paid off. And one thing I noticed is that one of the most powerful themes in your story, it's purpose. And I don't just mean just survival or recovery, but meaning.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what helped you make that leap from focusing on your own pain to realizing that, hey, my story could actually serve others.
Yeah, it was always kind of built into my foundation growing up. My faith is very important to me, and so much of that was realizing my ability to be able to serve others, use the gifts I have, not just for my own personal satisfaction, but for the benefit of others. And that really encapsulated itself as I started sharing this story, but there was a specific moment that changed everything for me. But to give some context to that, I used to coach youth rugby camps over in the summer in Sacramento, where I learned to play rugby at Jesuit high school. And the age range was like 10 to 14 years old. And there was this one camper there whose name was Talon. And he was one of the smaller kids out there in the field, but like he played with heart. He's kind of just like a Rudy type, and like I remember I'd give him the ball and pick him up so he could go score. So I'm like, 6'5" D1 athlete, just bobbing and weaving in between a sea of 10-year-olds and like putting a stiff arm on little Jimmy. Talon could have his moment. And we shared this real bond. And it was around the time of my injury, about 5 days after, that my high school was hosting a prayer service for me to pray for my healing and my strength. And it's on this day, and my dad shows me a picture on his phone of someone who I can't recognize, but he is obviously fighting for his life. His hair is white and thin. His body is skin and bones. His skin is very pale. And my dad tells me that this kid was Talon, and Talon was fighting stage 4 cancer. And it was a part of this picture that his mom wrote a caption, and it read along the lines of, Talon wanted so badly to be at the prayer service to pray for Robert today, but had to be here in the hospital undergoing chemotherapy. And he's wearing his Jesuit rugby shirt that the team gifted him in his first round of chemo. And she said it's his goal that when he beats his cancer, he wants to go play rugby, and Robert inspired him to do that. But it stops with this sentence that's just seared into my soul, and it really encapsulated that purpose for me. And it said, stay strong and keep smiling, Robert. Your strength helps Talon stay strong too. And in this moment, I just wept. I mean, tears just poured out of my face because I realized in that moment that overcoming this injury is not about me. It's about him. And it's about all those people who are inspired when I choose to fight another day. And let me tell you, what I do is not easy, and it's still not. And I can walk 500 yards now. My upper body's doing wonderful. Here I am moving my hands everywhere, and it's just incredible, but it's not easy. I mean, it's a struggle for me to do each one of these workouts. The thing that's kept me going this long and will keep me going for the rest of my life is that I'm not doing it for myself, and I'm not just doing it for the pleasure of going from point A to point B on my feet. It's to make a difference in others' lives and take what happened to me, which many people would think would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and I'll turn it into a gift. And that's a gift that I can share with other people, a gift that's so powerful where I wouldn't even wish this injury away because I would lose that gift. I wouldn't have this ability to help others if it weren't for me breaking my neck. And it's been a tough road. It's not easy, but it got me where I am today, and it just filled me so much purpose in my life. I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. And it was that moment with Talon that really just changed things for me and has really helped me through this incredibly difficult journey.
Wow. So like you're saying that one kid that you used to coach ended up really making you realize how much of a difference, and your attitude about being like, oh, what are my talents I have to use it to serve others too and be a little selfless as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
it's really a lot, and that's definitely I can see why you would want to do it more, and what anyone would be like, okay, this is not just about me, this is about everyone else who I'm impacting through my story. And based on that, I see you built a life around strength, mindset, resilience, and discipline. But one thing I've noticed, no matter who the person is that sometimes strength can be a mask too. So did you ever have moments where appearing strong was actually doing the opposite and keeping you from facing what still needed healing?
I don't think I ever masked my struggles too much. And I think that that's healthy. It's, like in some ways there needs to be a balance in any sort of grieving process. And that's something that I needed to go through. So in those moments when I did feel really positive, I was really embracing that. In those moments that were really difficult, I was doing what I needed to do to get through those difficulties. And a lot of it happened when I returned to Cal, actually. I had spent a year away from school when I had my injury. I was in Denver doing my rehab mostly. And, life was just was moving on without me for a little bit there. But then I got back, and it was during that year of rehab that I didn't really have the chance to grieve, to really come to terms with what had happened to me because I was so busy. I mean, I was doing 8 to 9 hours of rehab a day. I was constantly seeing people. It was a lot that I was going through. And then when I got back to Cal, I had gained back a lot of mobility, and I was able to live independently. So I decided that that's what I wanted to do. And I wasn't going to have a caretaker. I was going to do this thing by myself. And I remember my parents, my brother, they dropped me off and helped me move into my room with the help of my teammates and coaches. I said goodbye to everybody. And then they just, they head out, and I'm like, whoa, like it's just me now. And this is the first time I've done this since my injury. It's kind of a sink or swim type moment. And there were a lot of times, especially late at night, when I didn't have any distractions. And it was just me alone with my thoughts, and those memories of what I had gone through and that comparison to my previous life to what I was in now really bubbled up to the surface. And it wasn't easy to deal with. I would look at a video of me breaking my neck just on like a quick 3-second loop. And I just look at it over and over and over again, just wondering, how did this happen? How did I go from, this D1 athlete, everything's kind of going my way, to dealing with quadriplegia? It was so hard for me to even continually be able to wrap my head around just how much things had changed and how this was my life. Looking at that moment where it all happened, trying to come to terms with that, it was a process. It wasn't something that I could do quickly. I really needed to sit in that for some time and feel that. But the good thing is that I didn't sit in that all the time. That when I got up, I go to class, I do my thing. I was really excited about that. I was genuinely thrilled to be back at Cal and to be pursuing my goals. And when I could see my friends and I was, I had a smile on my face and I'm joking around, I was genuinely happy to have those moments. And when I was feeling down, I wouldn't just sit there and, spend all day kind of moping and sitting in that grief. I would reach out to my friends and like, hey, can we get lunch? Can we get dinner? Can we go to the sports game? Like something to just get me out of the house and be able to disconnect with that for a while, so I didn't have to take on all that grief at once, really helped me. And I think that's important for all of us. We're all going to go through grieving periods in our life. You can't ignore that forever. You need to take on that grief eventually and feel that, come to terms with what had happened, understand what your life looks like now. But don't take that all on at once is my advice. Continue to get out in the community, see your friends, see your family, so you don't have to take that at one time. Really try to spread that out and continue to appreciate all those things that you continue to have.
I see. Coming back to Cal, I'm sure that must have been a huge change after that 1 year.
Yeah.
And on top of that, being with your friends and also like being able to like go out to sports games, get some lunch or dinner, and overall trying to be out as much as possible seems like definitely would help a lot of people who definitely are like, oh, I'm not able to do anything, I'm down or anything. But like, I'm wondering, what does real strength and success look like for you today?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's one that I've thought about a lot. It's one that changed from my initial recovery to where I am now. And it's the last chapter in my book, True Success. Because initially my goal, as I stated, was to be wheelchair independent one day. And initially my kind of criteria of success was based off of me accomplishing that goal or not. If I'm walking again, then I've succeeded. And if I'm not walking again, then I've failed. And now here I am. Nobody can see my upper body right now, or my lower body rather, but I'm in a wheelchair. And I've spent the last, 2,963 days in a wheelchair. And statistics say that I will spend the rest of my life in this wheelchair. The statistics far predict that. The odds very much say that I will spend the rest of my life dealing with the situation. And I got to think, if that's the case, does that mean I failed? Does that mean that I am not successful? And I think the answer, of course, is absolutely not, because beyond all these physical accomplishments, I have joy in my life, gratitude, purpose in my life. I think if you have those three things, joy, gratitude, and purpose, it doesn't matter what you are, what you're doing, you are successful. And if you have achieved all these amazing accomplishments, but you don't have joy, gratitude, and purpose in your life, then did you really succeed? I think like those intangibles, those internal qualities are so important. And those are the things that I'm most proud of. It's not just this mobility that I've gained, but it's being able to take whatever the world throws at me and not let it break me. I'm still going to be who I am, and I'm actually going to become stronger through this and that mental, emotional perspective, have that inner resilience. But then beyond that, where it gets really cool, be able to use that to make a difference in other people's lives, where that purpose component really comes in. I think that's true success. It's what I'm most proud of. I think it's what all of us should really seek to achieve in our lives.
Wow. Yeah. And purpose, like what were the three again? Like purpose,
joy, and gratitude.
Purpose, joy, and gratitude.
Yeah.
Those are some real big words. that define like what success really is to you. Wow. Something that many people, especially of our generation, Gen Z, should be looking out for. And speaking of our generation, Gen Z, we're known to be kind of exhausted and having pressure being like, oh, we have to be perfect. We need to be productive. We need to keep going all the time, no matter what.
Hmm.
So, what would you say to a young person who's listening right now who feels I'm stuck, I'm behind, or my story doesn't matter?
Yeah, I would say like don't wait for some accomplishment to happen in your life before you start letting yourself have happiness. And that's something that I had to learn too, because I thought that once I start walking again, like everything's just gonna work out for me. Like I'm just gonna be eternally happy and nothing could change that. And then I eventually achieved that goal. I got on my feet and I walked, and I thought that it was gonna be this huge moment that would just change me forever. And I remember like I sat back down in my chair, I kind of gave my therapist a high five and stuff. And then they're like, all right, Robert, on to your next workout. And it was just kind of like, whoa, wait, that's it? I had spent months and months and months dedicating everything to this accomplishment that was never supposed to happen. It did. And it was just kind of this fleeting moment. It came and it went and it got normalized. And it was this important life lesson to realize that we can't wait for some accomplishment to happen before we start having that joy, gratitude, that purpose in our life. We really ought to have that now. So it's this fine line because I think goals, ambitions are incredibly important. We all have one life, and I think this life is a gift. So we ought to use it like a gift to really embrace it and to really make the most of it. I think that's important, but not at the expense of all of our happiness, where our inner peace, our happiness in life is just contingent on some external outcome. Now, I think we really need to have that internal peace. And I think at the end of the day, all we can control is our effort. That's really it. I mean, outside of that, there's just so many circumstances that happen in life that we have no control over, all these variables that we just can't do anything about. But our effort is something that we can control. So what helps me kind of put my head on the pillow at the end of the day and know that I did all right is just knowing like, you know what, I'm tired and I accomplished my goals. I like kind of checked all my boxes that I wanted to check off. I can be at peace with whatever happens after this. So I think that's something, especially for a younger generation, where things just keep getting more and more competitive out there. And like you're supposed to be perfect, but you're not supposed to be a try hard at the same time. Like these incredibly unrealistic expectations. Just to like think like, what do you want to actually do with your life? Make a bit of a strategy to achieving that, and then just hold yourself accountable to it, whatever it is. And if things change your strategy, but give it all you've got. And I think that'll help you have a lot more peace in your life.
I see. And what's something that could actually make people happy if they're like, oh, I haven't achieved anything, but like I want to achieve something? What's something you would say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that you probably have achieved a lot. That we've all had incredible accomplishments in our lives, that we've all overcome incredible difficulties. It's important to really give yourself some credit there. There's nobody who hasn't really accomplished anything in their life. And it doesn't have to be these incredible grand accomplishments. I mean, I look back on like interactions like I had with Talon in that moment, and that's just a very human to human, one-on-one personal interaction. I would call that to an immense accomplishment and achievement in my life just from that one little interaction that I had with him. So I would say is to really start appreciating the little things in life. And that was something that was pretty easy for me to do because I had lost so much. And I started realizing just how much I took for granted. And once I was able to kind of start gaining these things back, like now I can breathe, now I can move my upper body again, I can walk 500 yards. I really try to be intentional about not letting that get completely normalized and just overlooking it. I really try to focus on appreciating all these things that I have in my life, not letting them pass me by, especially those small things that can give us a lot of joy in our lives. So, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're at Cal right now, you've achieved something amazing. Like, you can't tell me that you have achieved anything important in life. And so just that is really important. But there's this saying that goes, you don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. And I think that's just a horrible way to live. I think, why should we wait to lose something before we start showing appreciation for it? Shouldn't we start appreciating right now while we still have it So really important when you're kind of feeling down, like I don't really have like this like meaning in my life that Robert's talking about, to really just come in connection with those little things that you do have in your life and look outside to people who don't have those things to be able to appreciate that perspective of what you do have is a really important step to take to have that gratitude, have that joy in one's life that I think is important for success.
See, and that's so good you put it, even for like Cal students. I know a lot of us Cal students, we're known to be studying all day, we're known to be doing a lot of work and be like,
Right.
man, we haven't achieved anything, we haven't done much. But then if you look at what they've done, you know for sure that even by the least you've done something good, for
Yeah,
sure.
totally. Totally.
Yeah. And besides the Cal students, also about like how the small things matter and stuff. Like I love the analogy about being like, hey, the achievement or something doesn't have to be something big that you've already done. Think about like what you've done, even if it's like a small thing, like for example, probably making someone smile or probably making someone's day, and then be like, okay, this is actually something you've done good, you've gotten so far, and this goal, just keep your head up, keep your focus up, and then you should be good. Just don't lose your spirit. Don't burn yourself out. Actually
Totally.
stay focused and do it in a way that you can sustain it and keep it good. Am I right?
You are so right. And I think like another thing that really helps you come in tune with all that is like looking outside of yourself to help us realize how lucky we really are. There was some like when I was in the hospital and I was having those down moments, I would spend real intentional time looking up stories of people who are in far worse situations than me. And I'm looking at people who have stage 4 cancer. I'm looking at people who went to war and they lost limbs, homeless people, like stories of terrible situations that nobody should ever have to go through. But I'm looking at them explain how they make their lives happen every day. And a lot of times they have a smile on their face. And I'm like, remind me not to complain about anything ever again. Because if these people were in my situation, they wouldn't be upset when they have to get up out of bed early in the morning. They'd be excited that they just got to get up out of bed. And they wouldn't be upset when they have to go to class or they have to go to work. They'd be excited that they get to go to class. They get to go to work. I try not to forget that. I think when you have that outward looking mindset and a lot of empathy for what someone goes through, then it really helps put your challenges into perspective and see those little things that we all have in our lives.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to look at it, being like, hey, looking outward, looking like, okay, the mindset being like, okay, I have to like look at what others are going through a little bit, look at like how my situation is and how I can make the best use of it, always trying to be optimistic about it. But even if, despite it being optimistic, despite having that positive mindset, what's a belief you had to unlearn in order to truly move forward?
I believe you have to unlearn. I've never been asked that question before. Man, that's really wonderful. I think for me, it was comes back to like that true success, that success isn't all about like these external outcomes, that it's really about the internal outcomes that matter. And I mean, we can go to the cliffs of Malibu right now and find people who are horribly depressed. Like they have everything in the world, but they don't have a lot of meaning in their life. And I would say like that's not what you should look to achieve. And it's funny how we can go to third world countries right now and find people who are smiling and like laughing and they have so much less, but they're so much happier. And I had to unlearn that my success didn't need to be predicated on these external outcomes. It should really be these internal feelings and principles within that I should be shooting for. And that's something I had to unlearn. I think especially when you're just in high performing environments, a lot is like just focused on what's on your resume and like what can you list on a LinkedIn profile. But I think we should really be pushing for those internal qualities. I think that's what pushes us forward because I think it's important because I learned through this injury that life is fragile. It can change very quickly. And in one moment, I went from being as healthy as I could possibly be to being told that later that day, I might die. I might not even make it through this. So I learned just how quickly things can change. And I don't think we should let days, weeks, months, years of our lives pass by, just nose to the grindstone, not allowing ourselves to have that internal peace and happiness. I think we really need to prioritize it right now in any moment because things can change very quickly and you don't want to let years or months of your life pass by without having that happiness.
I see. So, definitely, that's so true that we need to figure out a way to still be happy while doing what we're doing. Your journey has taken, I know, so many turns, whether it's emotionally, physically, spiritually, and even mentally. But underneath it all, what is one thing that you've always been true about you, even during your darkest moments?
Yeah. I think part of it was that I like to laugh. Like I like to just like keep joy, keep like the room light. And that happened right on the day after my injury. I think when my teammates came to visit me, a lot of them expected me to be pretty depressed. To really not probably be able to speak much. You got to imagine, like, these guys knew me really well, and we spent a lot of time together. And, one can only think, what would your friend be like if they lost their ability to move and they might never get it back? And I was sitting in the hospital bed, and two of my friends came in. One of them, Tyler Douglas, had just gotten into the Haas School of Business. And at that time, it was a 2-year program for undergrad. So you do a couple years of prereqs, you would apply, and then if you got in, you had 2 more years. But it was a really difficult application and low statistics for getting it in, as it still is, right? It's a really competitive school. And I was still waiting to put in my application. And my buddy Tyler comes into the room, and I tell him, Tyler, I'm going to be able to write a heck of an application essay now. Like, this is going to be the essay to end all essays after I write this story. So it's kind of like, I think in that moment, they started to see like it's still Robert, like it's still him. And, yeah, he's laying down. And I had a lot that I was going through, but I still maintained that essence of who I was. Like, if my friends are in the room, I'm going to have a good time and we're just going to be able to hang out and laugh. So I think in a lot of ways, everybody thought that they needed to be my rock, that I really needed to lean on them. And trust me, I did. But I think in a lot of ways, I was able to be their rock too. And they could lean on me because I still really maintain that essence of myself and just kind of that happy personality, looking forward to just like seeing the people I love and spending time with them.
That really anchors the truth in everyone else and everything else, like something that no injury, no diagnosis, no challenge can ever take away. So let's go back to like when you're back on campus, like, and you run into 20-year-old Robert just days after the injury.
Yeah.
He's fearful, lost. He's not sure what's going to happen next. What do you say to him?
I would say be grateful for every day. And that wasn't easy for me to do back then. Because you got to think, like, when I was back in the hospital, I mean, there was so much that I couldn't do. And I was dying. Like I said, my faith is really important to me. And my nightly prayer would always start with, God, thank you for this day. And when I was in the hospital, it was really hard to say that and mean it. Like, how could I be grateful for today? I'm sitting here in a hospital room dying, and I might not even make it out of this. But in those moments, I still had so much around me to really be hopeful and positive about. I had my family, I had my friends, I was in a really great facility. And when I returned back to campus, I had my family and my friends there with me all the time. I was at the #1 public university in the world, in the Haas School of Business, which was a huge goal of mine, like pushing myself in my life, looking to achieve success and really make my dreams happen. I should be grateful for every single day. And I think if we're going to have gratitude for our life and the ability to exist, then we have to be able to accept those things that we don't want to accept and show some gratitude in that general sense of our lives. So that's what I would tell myself. Just like keep saying you're grateful for every day, because it's going to get to a spot where you're going to get out of the storm and things are going to be amazing. Luckily, I'm in that period now and things are pretty amazing.
Wow. That's not just a message. That's a legacy. Something that many people should take note of, and many people should understand that being grateful isn't up just like isn't just about what you have, but about the situation you're in, even if it doesn't seem like you should be grateful about it. That's a
Yeah.
really good insight. Now, let's move on to this fun and final part of the podcast, the rapid fire round, where you have only 1 minute to answer every question, Robert. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
All right, perfect. One word your closest friends would describe you or use to describe you.
Man, gosh, I would probably say like fortitude. They would use like fortitude as a strong adjective, which means courage in adversity or pain. I would think I'm not an expert at a lot of things, but when things get tough, I think I have a unique ability to keep moving forward and have that courage in adversity.
Okay, first thing you do when you wake up?
Hey, I hate to say it, but I get on my phone right away. Yeah, I get on my phone. But maybe what I'm most proud of in my morning routine is prayer. I spend about 20 or 30 minutes every morning in prayer, being very grateful for yesterday, for the day that I'm in right now, kind of setting my intentions. I'm praying for my family and my friends and everything that I got going on today, really inviting God into that interaction.
All right. A quote or mantra you live by.
It's by Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning. And it says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances.
Okay. Hardest thing about being vulnerable.
Humility, letting down your pride and being a humble person and just letting go of what people are going to think about you when you really start to expose yourself. What's helped me in that is that I think our greatest weaknesses when we're vulnerable are often our greatest sources of strength.
Biggest myth about strength you wish people would unlearn.
That it's all about like positive accomplishments. I think a lot of times when people think of strength, they think of, like muscular physique, like, building big businesses, stuff like that. I think that when I think of like real incredible strength, it's people who are overcoming tremendous adversities, the things that nobody would ever want to go through. I think those are the strongest people.
All right, good one. And then favorite moments from your time at UC Berkeley.
Favorite moments, I think, so graduation was one. I got to walk across the stage. One of my other favorite moments was getting able to walk on Memorial Stadium in 2018 during homecoming. There was like 50,000 people all screaming their butts off while I was walking across stage there. But other than that, it was working out with my coach, Coach Billups. Those were my favorite moments when I could be back in the gym with him, working on walking again.
Your guilty pleasure TV show or movie.
Forrest Gump. Oh my gosh, I love Forrest Gump. I write about it in the book. Like I've watched that thing probably like 70 plus times now, and I'm a bona fide trivia expert. So happy to challenge anybody who's up for it.
Okay. A book that's changed your life that's not your own.
Yeah, it's Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's a lot of things I was reading in there that I've found have really helped me in my recovery, but telling it in these new ways that I see could really help apply to other areas of my life and share that with others. So it's a self-help improvement book, but I think it's the best. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Your go-to hype song before you do a talk or go to a big event.
Oh man, I don't really have one, but I want to answer your question.
Just say past.
I
if you
might
don't
have to
have it.
pass. I don't really have one.
Okay. All right. A tradition at Cal you wish would never die.
Cal Rugby winning national championships. That's my favorite tradition.
Okay. One thing you wish more people knew about paralysis recovery.
That there's so many things that you can't see. Like oftentimes when you have a spinal cord injury, you can't regulate your temperature. So if it gets too hot, you can't sweat and you can overheat. Or if you get too cold, you can't shiver. So you can get hypothermia. So it's just realizing that it's so much more than just not being able to walk. There's a lot that you go through that you can't see.
Wow. If your story became a film, what would you have the title be?
It would be Paralyzed and Powerful. I think it's such a good title for the book. So I think in that, like I'm sharing my story, but I really want other people to be able to put themselves in those situations and think about the things that they're overcoming, their paralysis.
And last but not least, finish the sentence. Success is
living with joy, gratitude, and purpose in your life.
Love that. And that wraps us up with our rapid fire round. Robert, I want to say thank you for choosing to turn adversity into insight and for using your voice to remind others that strength isn't just something we're born with, it's something we choose. And Robert, I want to also say thank you for joining me on this episode of Limitless Minds. And to every listener out there, if you're facing something that feels impossible right now, this is your reminder that your story isn't over, that you're not behind. You're just in the middle of the climb. Follow Limitless Minds and share this episode with someone who needs it. And remember, you don't have to be ready to rise. You just have to take the first step. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, and if you don't start now, someone else will. Thank you.
Every story is a lesson, and every challenge is an opportunity. Success, it looks different for everyone, but growth, it's universal. Thanks for joining me here on Limitless Minds. Until next time, I want you to stay curious and remember to stay limitless. Because if you don't start now, someone else will.